We talked about Robert Hall last week, and this week you played is it Andy Kellett and Chris Leicester.
Yes.
What did you make of their debuts?
Well, listen, the two younger players. Aidan White obviously started. He's made his debut. Two young players come on. I'm a huge believer in giving opportunities to young players only if they're good enough. I think we've still got a long way to go in terms of trying to get younger players in the team, but they're showing early signs that that they're getting better. Don't get me wrong. For 1 minute, I'm not a guy who will just put them in because it's a good PR stunt. They've got to be good enough. And I've seen one or two younger players, starting to come through the 21s. A couple of good results for them, and I'm starting to think that they're worth an opportunity. Obviously, the injury situation has helped one or two others along, but I felt young Andy Kellett and Chris Leicester, they come on. It was a very difficult match against the league leaders, and they didn't let themselves down. So hence the reason they'll be involved this weekend.
How close are they to playing a bigger role next season?
Well, again, what you got to do is with any young player, you got to get them back after pre-season. They got to go away. They got to let their muscles rest. They got to let their minds rest, and then when they come back in pre-season, they've got to really hit the ground running and show that desire and hunger that I'm after. So, if we can get through the summer with none of them, all of a sudden thinking they're too big for their boots, or whatever they do over the summer, some players, and they come back in the right shape and with the right mindset, then yeah, I'm sure one or two younger players can have a future. They two to mention, but there's a few more.
Quite a strong youth setup here, and that's it.
Well, listen, that's what I've tried to be really come to the football club to try and build. I think it won't take 1 or 2 seasons. We got to make sure that first and foremost we get a little bit more international youth players through. I think that's been a bit disappointing. We got to get 1 or 2 of them into the. Jimmy does a great job identifying the young talent at 14, 15, whatever it is, and then we got to get them into the the international setups. So therefore they have a standard of where they're at, and it gives the club a little bit more credibility in terms of bringing players to the club, and then you get the ball rolling. All of a sudden you're getting to bring players that maybe you wouldn't have before, and especially if you're playing in the first team. So there's a long way to go, but certainly we're on the paths that I like to take. That's the whole reason of trying to beat Sheffield Wednesday, and no stone will be unturned until we get right down to the bottom of what they do.